Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, Governor Corbett has released his 4-point education reform plan. We have the folks from, or an individual from the cyber schools here to sort of chat about, get their view on it, and then what else? It's popular financial literacy update time, all of that and more following these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, the big news in the state of Pennsylvania is obviously the Governor Corbett in York, Pennsylvania, earlier in the week laid out his 4-point education program. It has its supporters, that's its opponents. I think we happen to have a supporter in the House. We had the folks on from Pennsylvania State Education Association. They have a different view. Our goal, all points of view on this show. Joining me today is Stephen Catanzarite. I got that right, didn't I?
You did.
See, there you go. Well, we're from the same parts of Italy a long time ago, but we won't go there. He's the managing director of Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center in Midland, PA, which is close to Ohio. Do I got that right?
Very close to Ohio. That's
yeah,
right.
Well, all right, great country out there. All right, Steve, look, let's talk a little bit about, I know I want to get into the cyber charter school law reform proposal that's in the legislature, but let's first of all talk about of the Governor Corbett's 4-point plan, and we got, you know, teacher evaluation, we have charter school changes, we have, let me see if I can get this right, we have, of course, vouchers, right, which is a big one, and then we have teacher evaluation. I mean, they're huge, big changes, controversial. Of those 4, what is the most important to you?
Well, to me personally, is the charter school reform and reforming the charter school law that's been around, I think, since 1998 now.
Right. Passed, I think, during Ridge's.
Right. And of course, both the House and the Senate have bills pending to reform the charter law. Back in August, I appeared before Senator Piccola's Education Committee to give testimony about what I thought were some of the needed changes. I mean, it's over a decade ago, so a lot of things have evolved since then.
Help our viewers out. We throw around these terms. What does a charter school mean? Help our viewers out.
Well, charter school is really just an independent public school. They are public schools. I think that's the first thing that people need to recognize. That charter school is a public school. It just happens to be organized a little differently. It's organized by communities or groups of people that have a particular interest in what particular focus the charter school might have. And then they're funded differently in that they don't levy taxes themselves. Charter schools are funded by a mechanism whereby a portion of the per pupil dollars that funds a student's education in his or her home district follows him or her to the charter school.
Can a public school itself can create a charter within the public school, is that correct?
Sure, yes it can.
And they exist right now?
Schools that have become charter schools themselves, I think there's one. And then right now, public school districts are basically the main driver of whether or not a charter school gets approved.
And that's one of the changes you want to bring about.
It is,
yeah, we can talk about that in a minute. So let me just make sure we get this straight from here. So charter school, could a school district itself create a charter school within the school district, meaning under the rubric of it, you know, side by side, so to speak?
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it would be similar, I guess, in some ways to traditional school districts that start magnet programs. Right. The difference would be in a magnet school, those kids still come from that school district. Right. If a school district starts a charter school by law is actually open to any student in the Commonwealth.
Okay. But I just want to get this straight. I mean, we throw these terms around, you know, our viewers, you know, and
because then the next thing is that there's cyber charter schools.
And I want to get to that. But let's talk a little, let's go into it. Now, there's, as you point out, there's 2 bills, one in the Senate, one in the House, that would change the way charter schools currently operate. The original legislation, as you point out, passed during the time when Tom Ridge was governor, correct, 1998. So if in your perfect world, what would you want to see change about the current charter school law?
Well, I think, first of all, I'm very interested in there being an independent authorizer to approve as well as to monitor charter schools.
Okay.
In Governor Corbett's announcement yesterday and in both pieces of legislation in the legislature at the moment, they are looking at creating an independent state-level authorizing body, which I think would be good for a number of reasons. Personally, I'm also interested. I would love to see universities be given the opportunity to be charter school.
Is that in any of these proposed?
I've seen it discussed. Whether or not it's actually in any of the draft bills that are currently before, I don't know.
Okay. We're going to run to a break, and we'll come back. I want to continue along this line because this is helpful to get a sense about. Now, quickly, and we'll pursue this. Cyber charter schools as opposed to charter schools. Cyber charter schools how are they different from charter schools?
They're different basically just in the way they offer instruction. A cyber charter school offers the majority of its instruction online or through other electronic means. The funding mechanism is the same.
I got it.
And the only other difference is that right now cyber charters are the only charter schools that have to be authorized by the state.
Okay, this is clearing up. I mean, for our viewers, this is, you know, we throw these terms around, as I keep saying, and people look, they glaze over. What does it mean? What are they? And this is a helpful explanation. All right, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about this distinction, cyber charter schools. This is complicated but important. And then we'll get down to school choice. What else? Because that's obviously a huge part of the governor's proposal. Push in the legislature is likely to come up in the next several weeks. And then we'll have what else? Popular financial literacy update time. It's Credit Union Month. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by ReconnectPA.org, supporting a comprehensive transportation funding solution, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're talking about all kinds of aspects of education, changes in the air. We'll see how much with Stephen Catanzarite. He's the managing director of the Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center in Midland, PA. So how many, we're talking about cyber and charter schools, by the way. Cyber, how many, do you have a sense about how many cyber schools are out there?
I want to say...
Hundreds?
No. In Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
I think somewhere around 12 or 13.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are any of them owned by, or not owned by, is the wrong word, are any of them part of public schools, or are they all separate from part of public schools?
Well, they're all, again, what happened, because a cyber school by its very nature can go statewide and draw students from anywhere. That's right. I'm not sure the exact year, but a reform to Pennsylvania's charter school law was to make cyber charter schools now accountable directly to the state. So the Department of Education actually approves charters for cyber charter schools, and also does the reapproval process after the 5-year charter. So that's a big difference. I know now there are more school districts moving towards offering their own cyber programs
within the context of their
those
own.
Wouldn't be charter schools.
Well, so is higher education, by
exactly.
the way. Yeah,
right.
You know how much and what the division is.
Well, I'm getting my master's degree online.
There you go.
100%.
So. There you go. 100%.
100% online.
I mean, where that all goes. I mean, public universities, my sense is, are doing it a bit more than No, I don't want to say that. Because there are a fair number of private universities that I know that will offer part of the curriculum anyway. Right. Go ahead.
And I think, and at the graduate level as well, I think there's a lot of them that, again, offering full-time degrees.
And that's because of the graduate students are usually working, have families.
Makes good economic sense for them. It's a market for them to serve, and I think that's why they're out in front of this, even ahead of the K-12 market.
Well, let's talk. Is there anything else that's important about before I go to school choice, let me ask you something about this legislation. Run through 3 or 4 of the key points that are in these charter cyber school changes that you would like to see.
Well, the first thing is that
administrative control.
Well, the first is that notion of an independent authorizer. Right now the school districts do it. And I'm part of a group that's in the process of trying to start a new K-8 charter school. And the response of the school district has been basically to say no at every point along the way. You know, I think basically because they don't want the competition for students and thus dollars that a charter school would bring. So it's sort of like right now of you want to open up a McDonald's franchise and you have to go ask Burger King if you can do it in that region. I think that's important. But I think the independent authorizer is also important because the school districts are also supposed to be providing oversight of charter schools. And again, what happens usually is if a charter is approved, there's either little communication and cooperation between the school district or it's an antagonistic relationship. That, to me, chokes off what is a very important aspect of charter schools, which is innovations that take place in charter school can and should be spun out.
So that's the biggest concern that you have.
Yeah, right.
All right. Let's then go to the school vouchers for a couple minutes that we have left. Very controversial. That's strong supporters, strong opponents. Been tried, 3 or 4 times before. Tom Ridge tried it twice. School vouchers under this plan that Governor Corbett proposes would allow about 140 schools, kids and families with low incomes. It's in 2 levels, won't go into that. About 140 schools, low-performing schools, low-income families would be able to take vouchers, get a certain sum of money, and go to both a public and a private. That sort of surprised people that it just wasn't listed private, but a public and private, take the voucher with them, and get an education. You like this. Why do you like it?
Well, I don't know, not so sure it's cut and dry that I like, because it's very complicated. In terms of vouchers themselves, I've been at least theoretically and academically a fan of vouchers going back to Milton Friedman.
Right.
And his proposals for vouchers way back in probably the 50s and 60s. The current bill, I would say, is I don't understand it probably enough to have a strong appeal. It's complicated.
But conceptually, it would still take public dollars, allow parents to choose where they go. I mean, I think you would agree.
And just
there.
like in the charter school movement, my feeling always is that our opponents at the school district say that you're taking our money,
public dollars.
You're right. Now, well, we're taking the taxpayers' money, who is giving those parents a choice over how best to serve. I like charter schools and voucher schools in that they challenge the status quo, that they challenge a model of education that we have that dates back to the 19th century, that served us well over the last 100 years, but I think is no longer serving us to the level that we need to.
One of the points that critics make is that, well, what this would leave would be there's no real reform then in the public schools. What's going on is, as you point out, you take the resources and cherry pick the students that you want leaving.
Yeah, you can't do that, but I know that's what they say.
I mean, that's the argument.
Right.
And your answer?
Well, and no, I mean, we're there, first of all, to serve every student, and there's part of the laws that are in place is you can't, quote-unquote, cherry pick students, and many charter schools have been founded by people who want to serve populations, demographics, communities that have been, in their minds, underserved by traditional public education.
All right, well, look, I want to thank you for coming in, helpful explanation, particularly clearing up all these distinctions with all these kind of schools. All right, it's financial literacy update time. It is, guess what? It is PA Credit Union, well, it's Credit Union Association Month. We're going to talk about a couple of things that I think you might find important. What about these credit card charges out of the same bank? Should that be allowed? We got some experts that are going to weigh in on that after we're talking about money. We pay some bills.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. and by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, the host misspoke. You know, the host is never wrong, but it's International Credit Union Month. I think I said, Mike and Jim, right? I think I said it was now. You're not going to let me get away with that, are you?
We'll talk about it.
Okay. Jim McCormack and Mike Wishnow, these guys have been on the show many times from the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. All right, before we get, I want to get into International Credit Union Month, what it means and all of that. But Mike, I want to start with you. This big brouhaha over Bank of America and the $5 they want to charge their own customers. Now, is that brought on by this financial regulatory reform that the president signed in July of 2010, sometime known as Dodd-Frank, sometime, you know, for the authors of it? Is this what's driving? You talked about this a month or so ago.
Yep, we talked about it a month ago. We talked about it 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And frankly, it was a predictable outcome. We talk about Dodd-Frank. There was an amendment called the Durbin Amendment,
right,
named after Richard Durbin.
Senator
Durbin, correct. And basically what that did was it changed the calculus for debit card fees, what's known as swipe fees, right, Jim?
Right.
Swipe fees,
yeah, go ahead. Help.
Yeah, and the biggest thing there, Terry, is fraud, the fraud issue. Yeah. They cut the debit fees to give more to the merchants, but still the financial institution, be you a bank or a credit union, is on the hook for fraud issues. Yeah.
So now you made the point, one of you, when we talked about this you making the point that obviously there's some good things about the financial reform. I mean, it's aimed at stopping some of the practices on Wall Street, but it's also hitting, you know, credit unions, small community, banks and credit unions like yours that, you know, aren't, you know, dealing with hundreds of billions of dollars, right? Go ahead.
Like the recent Volcker amendment they're trying to pass. That really applies to large international banks, you know, their own trading, hedge funds with using their own funds. But
regulating them so they don't do what they did before with selling, betting against their own clients and that kind of stuff.
Community banks and credit unions aren't impacted by that, and that's why people should look to credit unions and community banks. Keep the money local.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look. Let's go to this. Every year, you know, we talk about International Credit Union Month. It's a chance for you to explain, you know, what credit unions do. Who wants to go first here?
Go ahead, Mike.
Mike, go ahead.
Sure. International Credit Union Month is a celebration of credit unions, and basically we're trying to make people aware that credit unions are a financial cooperative owned by their members. They are an alternative to the traditional banking system, and of course these Bank of America fees and other banks that have followed suit aren't hurting our cause any. I mean, a lot of people are starting to understand what a credit union is, what a credit union does, that they're able to belong to a credit union, and indeed it's a better deal from a consumer standpoint.
All right, I want to get into a couple other areas. We want to run to a break. This time goes very quickly. I want to talk about, you know, you make this argument about going back to basics about understanding, you know, what the core functions of financial institutions are going to be. I know you want to talk a little bit about that. We'll do that when we return.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back to the program. It's International Credit Union Month. Before we get this business of, you know, getting back to basics, I want to ask you, Jim, about flood relief. It's been a huge part, I know, of what your organizations have been up to. It's just literally almost consumed a couple of state agencies in terms of trying to meet.
Well, it's consumed a good portion of our work. We have a foundation, and our philosophy, of course, is people helping people. And Mike, how many grants? Over 200 small?
Yeah, over 200 grants, almost $150,000.
So explain how this works. You're giving grants to
credit union members.
To credit union members to help them personally.
Correct.
These are grants, not loans?
They're grants.
Grants. You're just giving the money.
Yep, between $500 and $1,500 for those that were impacted.
And so, And this would are just spread out through, I guess it's mostly Eastern people?
No, from Sayre, Athens, all the way down the river, down into Harrisburg and York.
Yeah.
Other people
And I'll
that
bet,
impacted.
do you have more people lined up than you had money that you could make available, or shouldn't I go there?
Oh, give us a couple of days and we'll have a final report.
Yeah, but I mean,
we've been busy.
but the bigger
Yes.
point here is that we're still living with the problem, and because it's off the news, somehow people think folks aren't hurting.
Yeah, it's not over.
Is that the problem?
It's not over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk. You know, when you talk about getting back to basics, what's that really mean for you folks?
You know, there were a number of problems that precipitated the economic nosedive, if you will, and the problems on Wall Street and the reform laws.
Right.
A lot of that was some wild mortgage lending. A lot of that was some speculative investment. When you turn on the TV shows, all the pundits are saying get back to basics.
Right.
Well, credit unions never got away from basics. Is that fair, Jim?
That's true. That's true. That's a very good point.
And when you say getting back to basics, you're talking about doing bread and butter lending, not using your assets to buy things that are out of your domain. I noticed that a lot of the financial houses in New York and Wall Street, and I don't follow this closely, I'm not a financial guy, but they seem to be getting into all these myriad investments that, well, what are they doing in those? What's that about?
And that's really the
Go ahead.
international banks, and they're the top 10 banks in the country competing internationally are into the use of derivatives and hedge funds and whatnot.
All right.
But back to basics,
Go ahead.
it's good, solid local underwriting, where credit unions never strayed from that, be it on mortgages or anything else. But everything should be kept local.
Okay, we have a minute left, but I want to go to something else that we've talked about over the years, and that's the Credit Union Foundation.
Sure.
And go ahead. You've got
Well, our
100,000
foundation-
students or something like that.
Yeah, it's a charitable foundation. As Jim said, the past month or so, it's been all about disaster relief. But in addition to disaster relief, we do financial education, and we help small credit unions to serve their members.
Right. And you have, what, 171 school districts where you're doing what, education programs?
Correct. We're in the school district in some way, shape, or form.
And this has been an expanding program. We've talked about this for
yes.
years.
All throughout the state, and the foundation has helped credit unions get involved with the school district and help fund classrooms for financial education.
Yeah, I know we talk about a lot of things, we're out of time, about what schools should do, but I mean, this is a pretty important part of it. Maybe it's, wherever they get the curriculum, wherever they do it, it's an important part. All right, as always, great update. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.